Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to HBCU Buzz Presents Breaking Down the Facts about the Vaccination against COVID-19. My name is Terrence J, and there have been so many rumors, so many misconceptions, so many things that we think we know about this vaccination, where we've been and where we're going. And today, it's time for some real talk. How do we do that? Well, first, I had to put together a squad of my friends, and we're going to ask some doctors the real hard questions about what's going on with this vaccine, should we take it, and how to move forward. We have also our HBCU Buzz audience. Keep on hitting us up with questions. We're going to ask your questions to the medical professionals as well. Now, this is a paid sponsorship from Moderna, but please be very clear. Part of my conditions to do this was that I'm not holding back any punches. I want to know the real answers, how it really affects our community, and how it's really going to affect us moving forward. So we're going to do a deep dive, and we're going to get to the bottom of things right now. With that said, I want to introduce my friends and colleagues who are going to help me with this discussion. These are real, genuine friends of mine. Of course, everyone knows Kelly Rowland, multi-hyphenate singer, songwriter, actress. Ashley Blaine Featherson, who's an incredible actor, a Howard University alumni. Ashley Blaine, you know I love you. And then my brother from another mother, except he's much more handsome than I am, Lance Gross, who is currently, I don't know what the guy is shooting right now, but another Howard alumni, which is why I had to wear my A&T jacket. Guys, first of all, before we get to the doctors, how's everybody?
Good. I'm
good. Healthy. Right. Amen.
Yeah. Ashley, where you at?
I'm at home.
You're in LA?
I'm in LA, rainy LA, yes.
Rainy LA. It's good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you, my friend.
Too.
Kelly, you're down the street. You got to come over and cook. What's going on, Kelly?
I know. I am down the street. But I feel good. I cannot complain about anything. For sure.
I just want to rub the baby bumps, man. You know, see these babies. I need some baby luck. Lance, you got babies. So what's going on, man?
Hey.
You in Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm in Atlanta and currently in a production bubble. So, yeah, got to get it done, man.
Staying safe. Well, listen, I first of all, I'm so glad that it's the four of us because I know we have some questions. This thing is scary. It's confusing. You know, there's so many rumors. I went from saying, man, I'm never getting the vaccinations. Now I'm like, oh, man, I better get it ASAP before so I can check. Like, I have so many questions. I'm sure you do as well. So I can't wait to talk to these doctors. You guys ready to meet the doctors?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we have some amazing professionals on the line. Dr. Kimbrough, who's the president of Dillard University and a PhD in higher education. I know Dr. Kimbrough personally, the real deal. So, Doc, thank you so much for coming on with us. And Dr. Dan Fagbuyi, who's an ER physician, Obama administration Biodefense Public Health appointee, and a former FDA and HHS medical advisor on emerging infectious threats and preparedness. And we have Dr. Hodge, who's the Senior Associate Director of Education of Tuskegee University National Center for Bioethics and Research in Healthcare. So obviously with Tuskegee, we know they're at the forefront of this whole thing. I can't wait to talk to you. So all of our doctors, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you. You know, before we talk about the vaccination, and again, our friends at Moderna told us this is not about, you know, co-signing one particular vaccination. This is a real health issue, a real concern in the Black community. And we want to make sure that we get the proper information out to us. So again, thank you to our friends at Moderna, but thank you to our friends at HBCU Buzz. We're not holding back any punches. We're jumping right in. So how did we get here? We're a year into this COVID thing. How did this thing get triggered?
With the pandemic, so there have been a group of us who have been doing the work of biodefense and preparedness, meaning we were preparing for the big thing that's going to happen. While everybody was enjoying their food and family and their vacations and stuff like that, there were people that were researching different things, looking at what we call zoonotic diseases. What that means? That means the diseases that jump from animals and different organisms into the human. So in this case, the theory is that actually these viruses have been living in different animals, and from time to time, we get them where they may jump into a different animal, or in this case, into a human. And that's what happened with coronavirus, and specifically SARS-CoV-2, that we have now known as that infection that has led to the pandemic. So that's how we got here, but it's not that we hadn't known certain things like this could happen. We've seen it with different types of cases. We've got MERS, which was the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. We had SARS in the past in 2003. So these things are going to be part of our life where you have to be prepared and better aware of it. And that's how we got here.
Dr. Kimbrough, can you speak a little bit about how this has affected the Black community? I mean, you're at the forefront of things right now, knee deep in the community every day. Can you talk about the effect on us?
The late Joseph Lowry used to say, when America has a cold, Black America has pneumonia. And so this was a great example of that, where you saw people getting sick. But here, particularly in Louisiana, when it first hit, you know, African Americans were like 70, 80% of the deaths. And we're like, what is going on? But you go back and look, and you start looking at comorbidities like obesity and diabetes. Those are the things that COVID loves. And so it really attacked it. And so now you've got these challenges in our communities because it's attacked us in terms of our physical health. But then you have on top of that the financial health, because a lot of people who are losing their jobs, Black folks. And then on top of that, we had this whole racial reckoning that was going on. So we were like, my God, what is going on? So you had all of these things happening at the same time, which has really made it tough, I think, for our community. So that's why really working to make sure that we can solve this part of the equation so we can deal with these other things is very important.
I liken this analogously to Katrina. It doesn't matter which hurricane it was, doesn't matter. You could call it Katrina, you could call it Wilma, doesn't matter. Because the levees were weak in the Black community, when the hurricane came, it shut it down. It devastated New Orleans. So there's 6 plus 1, 7 excess deaths like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, and in 1993 they added HIV and AIDS. So we lead in those categories. So because we were already vulnerable, therefore we had a great higher susceptibility of whatever that pandemic is going to be. It just happened to be COVID-19, and therefore that's why we're in this vulnerable state. And that's why we have to take it critically and not look at conspiracy theories, but take it critically.
You know, COVID has been the great equalizer. It doesn't matter where you live, what country you're from, who you are, social, economic. It has hit and affected us all. Kelly, you're a global superstar, but you've been affected by this as well with close family members and people around you. Can you talk a little bit about how it's affected you personally, socially, and from a business standpoint as well?
I mean, you know what? I feel like I have the same complaints as everybody else. You know what I mean? We're all here at home. We're all learning to be teachers, or all trying to figure out new opportunities, even for ourselves when it comes to business. You know what I mean? And wondering where the touring, when's touring going to start back up again, to when you get a chance to, start another project, movie-wise or TV or whatever. And people are figuring it out. They're finding their footing, but you're still on set and you're so used to being like next to people and bonding and talking. It's like developing, just the way we like to communicate as Black people, you know what I mean? Or just as people, period. But it's just affected everything. Like I said, my complaints aren't as bigger than anybody else's. We're all feeling this together at the same time in the same magnitude, for sure.
Yeah. Ashley, I mean, you're incredibly busy. How has this affected you?
It's been crazy. Like, similarly to what Kelly said, it's been very, very difficult. I started the year really excited, thinking you're going back to shooting the 4th and final season of Dear White People, which we were scheduled to start shooting at the top of April. We were all excited. It was our kind of, our last hurrah, and we weren't able to even go back to shoot until October. So for me, the biggest fear, in addition to, my health, the health of my loved ones, the health of my family, was my job and financial security. I think it was very scary to not know when or if we would go back to work again. A lot of shows are being canceled in the midst of COVID, and we knew that was a possibility for us, but we were incredibly blessed and able to go back to work. It took, a show that we typically are able to shoot in 3 months, sometimes a little bit less. It took us 5. And we had a lot of COVID outbreaks. We had a lot of shutdowns. We had a lot of people get really sick. We had to take different precautions that were terrifying. So again, it was tough, but I don't think it was any less or any more than anybody else that's been dealing with it. But I can say I've been blessed to have a home and a roof over my head and access to healthcare and all of those things. So I do know that I wish that more of a country and more of Black folks honestly had that. And so I'm definitely here to get more answers and figure out how to be a champion for better healthcare and better support for people of color.
100%. You know, you guys both mentioned how much this has taken a toll just on our relationships and on our, you know, our mental health of being outside. Lance, we would have been doing our annual HBCU tour a couple times over. I miss you. And, you know, how has this affected your mental health of not being able to not just work, but to not be able to see your loved ones, see your friends and family?
You know what? I look at it, it's been crazy. I mean, I could echo everything that Kelly and Ashley have said about it. It's just been this major reset. I feel like this is God's way of forcing us to be still because we are always on the go, you know, but, you know, it's just, for me, I look at the blessing in it. You know, I'm constantly with my family. I could wake up in the morning and cook breakfast for my children. So that's what I take out of it. I mean, the whole landscape is changing when it comes to work and travel and all that stuff. But, you know, it's kind of forced us to, you know, take our health seriously. You know, it's truly your health as well, you know, so it's crazy, man. I have a question. You know, for many Black men, including myself, it's very challenging to trust the system. You know, when the talks began about the vaccine, I immediately thought of the Tuskegee experiment. Like, how can you explain the Tuskegee syphilis study, its purpose, and how it impacts scientific studies today?
You know, the first thing we have to do is correct the language. The language is scapegoating language. It's not the Tuskegee syphilis study or the Tuskegee experiment. The Tuskegee experiment is actually the Tuskegee Airmen. The so-called Tuskegee syphilis study is misleading because it puts the onus on Tuskegee and the university. So both the city and the university gets the punishment for this vile, horrific act that was done to 623 Black men and their families, because sometimes we forget they had wives and daughters. That's excluded from the conversation. So what we have is, excuse me, the United States Public Health Service syphilis study at Tuskegee. So that's the first thing, to kind of get rid of the language of mistrust and distrust, because that is absolutely there. The next thing is, once we understand it was the United States Public Health Service who did this act against, we must, and this is, and Dr. Dan, I would like for you to hear your take on this, right? The problem is when people, because you hear it every day, every time you hear, just like you said, Brother Lance, every day you hear, you turn on the news, you're gonna hear the word Tuskegee mentioned. But there's a major difference, because the so-called Tuskegee syphilis study was about not treating the Negro men of syphilis. But what the vaccine is about treating. It's the very opposite. It's about treating the world population. So when we get caught up in that distrust language, what happens is our people are getting penalized. You hear my little cough because I'm recovering from COVID, and my son is recovering from COVID. So that's a celebration moment for us right now. So we're part of the few who got through. So this is a celebration moment. But the most important part is to not scapegoat, right? Tuskegee or Black history, be it J. Marion Sims, who did the gynecological experiments on suffering on Black women, or Henrietta Lacks, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole list of mistrust that we could choose. It is not so much, I say this is my last point, it's not so much the so-called Tuskegee syphilis study that's causing the distrust, is what we're seeing now that's causing the distrust. This is what's really causing the distrust. You're actually seeing things in real time. Anderson Cooper said, just like what Dr. Kimbrough said earlier about New Orleans, he said, what happened in Albany, you remember in the beginning, there was so many deaths in Albany, Georgia. What's happening in Albany is criminal. Well, no, is not what's happening in Albany, is what's happened already to Black and brown people with viciously poor health care. That's what's causing the distrust. And another part of the vaccine distrust, you asked a wonderful question, Sister Kelly, Sister Ashley, in terms of about your babies and your children. The question is, and Brother Dan, here's another question for you, is with respect to healthcare, if there are some negative repercussions to the vaccine in real time, I have Blue Cross and Blue Shield, so I'm going to take the vaccine. But what about those who do not have excellent health care? How are those repercussions going to be satisfied?
The bottom line is all great questions. So, and I like the way that you pointed it out. Let's call it what it is. And I've been an advocate of it. It's what the U.S. government violation of the Black community trust, okay? It's the U.S. medical system violation of the Black and BIPOC population's trust. Those are what has happened, okay? So how have we moved from there instead of shadow boxing? To your point, the study at Tuskegee was about withholding treatment. Right now, we're saying get treatment. So those are two different things. We're trying to push us to the front of the line to get our own. And that's what the discussion is about. So we have to make sure the optics are there and the language is there with empowerment, of course. So I'm all with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add to Lance's point. I'm an advocate of not even talking about Tuskegee anymore. And this is from my experience as a president. I teamed with the president at Xavier University, Louisiana here, that we both were in the vaccine trial. We were both in the Pfizer trial. And man, I got dragged up and down social media about being in the trial and you're a guinea pig. And half of the people mentioned Tuskegee and they said they injected them with syphilis. I'm like, y'all don't even know what the hell the whole thing is. So you got it wrong from the beginning. So it became a scapegoat. And then I started asking people to say, look, how many other vaccines have been developed? You talked about your kids. Mine are 15 and 12. Kelly's got a young one. You know, most kids will have about a dozen vaccines before they go to school, and nobody says anything about that. So we're not opposed to vaccine because we're not all going to rush to just educate our kids at home. So that's part of it too. Secondly, I'm from Atlanta. Most people don't even know where Tuskegee is. So why are people making decisions about what happened? Because there were 399 Black men who are part of that study that were not treated. When do we make decisions based on what happened to 399 Black men in rural Alabama? Because not too long ago, 100,000 people in Flint, Michigan had this bad water, and a quarter of the country still has bad water, and people not running around saying, I'm not going to drink any more tap water. I mean, we have to just, we got to call it out. It's like some things we have to just say, look, this is what we have to do. COVID is disproportionately impacting us, and we can't have a straw man argument like Tuskegee to say, well, I'm not doing this because of vaccines. I mean, this, you know, and even if you believe that they put something bad in their bodies, we put bad stuff in our bodies knowingly all the time. I will have Popeyes several times this week, and I know it's bad for me, but I'm having that Popeye spicy. I'm just keeping it real. So let's stop playing. We got to have this vaccine to be safe. So I'm just tell people, don't even talk about Tuskegee because y'all don't even know where it is. I know where it is. I've been there. I'm not talking about Tuskegee.
Dr. Kimbrough just said, if you get the Moderna vaccination, you get some free Popeyes biscuits as well to make sure that if you did that with that chicken sandwich, people would be lining up right now.
You know what's funny is my husband says the same thing. He says, you know, you have to pick and choose like exactly what it is that you want to actually complain or fight about. Because the truth is that you're going to have some sort of slip up somewhere. If you're going to try with a sandwich or whatever it is you want to do, you can definitely like trust a vaccine for just the sake of like life again. You know what I mean? Like whatever our normal, you know, life again, because this, what we're going through now is definitely not it.
You know, but I just want to, let me stay on this hard line and let me play devil's advocate just one more time. Just for everybody that's watching, because people will watch this and they'll think that the three of us are, you know, celebrity endorsers and we're getting paid to say this, and they'll come at all of us. So I just want to make sure I'm going hard on this. They keep using the words that this vaccination was put together with warp speed, right? And obviously this is something like, regardless, we know all of this has been taking place over the last year or so, right? So more so my concern, one of my fears is just that with anything that's rushed, right? I don't want my food rushed. I don't want anything that's rushed, right? How do we know that when we take this, the long-term effects, like, are there studies, you know, from the flu shot and how things have like played out with that over the years that, like, you know, I just want to make sure 10 years from now, we're not going to wake up and be like, oh, should have took that. You know what I mean? Like, how do we know the long-term effects when all of us are, you know, kind of experiencing this and dealing with this over the past year? I think that's part of the concern as well.
Great question. Here's my take on it, and I can't wait to hear what my other colleagues say. I'm in a unique situation, so I get the 30,000-foot view and I get the end user view because I work in the emergency department too. But when I was working for the Obama administration as the biodefense appointee, literally, this is what we lived and breathed. We would be doing research and trying to figure out the plans on how we would respond to a pandemic, a disaster, a terrorist event. That was my area and still is. That's why I'm here. But with regards to that, so you pull the curtain behind the veil, these type of vaccines and the study, the technology behind this has been done and been looked at for over almost 20 years, if not even more. Literally, they've looked at it with regards to cancer. They've looked at it in regards to vaccines and other types of things. So this is not anything new. So how we got to get it done is what people really need to know. I agree. The optics and the messaging, all wrong. I'm all about the message. The message warp speed, I mean, that sounds like some Star Trek intergalactic stuff. I got you. However, what have we been doing? We've been looking at it from a long period of time and getting that data to be able to do that. So what happened? We put a lot of money to it. So all eyes were on this when the pandemic hit. Oh, snap. This thing that hit. We got to get this moving. By the way, we have been planning years and years before. Yours truly and others in the news that you know, from Dr. Fauci and others, have been worried about anthrax and other things. So all those things were things that we worried about. In addition, we cut the red tape. So all the BS and the whole phase 1, phase 2, doing it in serial order, meaning back to back to back, step by step. We cut all that out and started doing it in parallel. You've been to any of the McDonald's drive-thrus or any of those where they have 2 or 3 different lanes of cars lined up that you go to, your throughput is a little bit faster. So that's how we got to that. So those are the things. We threw a lot of money. All eyes were on this, and we cut down the red tape. So we're doing things at the same time simultaneously. So we're not waiting for all the BS, the typical process that usually takes anywhere from 4 to 8 years on average. We did that in record time. And yes, we did, but it wasn't rushed because we knew what we were looking for and we knew how to maneuver through the system. So that's my thought on it.
Okay,
you're going to talk about job after this chat. I got to go eat now. Y'all made me hungry.
Let me add something to that. Okay, first, let me just say one thing that kind of undercuts this. And I think Dr. Zan said it before. Let me say it a little differently. Vaccines of all sorts have done more to save the human race than any other medical treatment all of them put together, right? Vaccines. So we've been doing vaccines. The question was, why is this one trying to be intimidating this one? Well, Dr. Dan said something a moment ago. They put billions of dollars behind this one and cut through the red tape. But what's important to know about this one is it's sort of like this. The analogy I would use is, so you had COVID-16 or COVID-17, and it's just like having an old car. And the engine goes bad, but the car's still good. So you put a new engine in it and you take off. So COVID-19 is COVID-17 with a stronger, faster, better engine. That kind of analogy, I think, will help people to understand. So the warp speed was not about, in terms of how fast they put the compounds together, the warp speed was how you're going to deliver it to people. So, like you're right, the optics are off if you misunderstand what the warp speed was about. How do we get this vaccine into 300-something million in America arms? That will be the warp speed. Use this as an opportunity to leverage, get ready for this, Dr. Kimbrough. If you could move so fast in pulling together and putting all this money and resources behind COVID-19 and literally save the planet, why can't you do that to diabetes and obesity and hypertension and the whole list of other, including HIV, the whole list of other comorbidities, that's what you call several different problems, right, illnesses that are hitting the Black community. So put the effort behind that. Each of us know a diabetic family member. Why don't we put the money behind all of these others? So because I'm sure Dr. Dan will co-sign on this one, there will be another pandemic. Another one is coming. There will be another hurricane. Another something is coming. But if we use this opportunity to leverage and say, listen, it's hypocritical to say that you can't fix these things when we've seen you do it in terms of COVID-19. Do it. Sickle cell is almost there. We're almost there with sickle cell. If we could leverage this moment and said we fix these things, then when the next thing comes, we will not be at the bottom. We'll kind of be right there mainstream, but we'll be ready for it.
Kelly, I see you nodding over there. What are your thoughts on that? And I know you have another question.
I feel the same way, for sure. I just feel like if you can throw that much oh my God, we just had this conversation. So I'm so happy I'm at the right place, exactly where I should be. But yeah, that's really the main question. If we got these billions of dollars for this, then that means that there's some money somewhere to be able to help with diabetes and like high blood pressure. Like, I just feel like the things that are also really hurting our community, you should throw money at that too.
How new is the mRNA technology and has it been used before?
So I think we kind of alluded to this earlier. It's been around for a while. They've actually been using this for over 20 years and doing the research and studies on that. So it's been around. It's not something new. As Dr. Hodge had mentioned also earlier, it's basically just kind of bringing something up to speed in terms of having it do the things we need to do. So the answer is it's been over 20 years, and now we're using it in this case as a vaccine for the pandemic. But they've been studying this for a while.
Question. Once you get the vaccine, will you need a booster?
So that's another good question. So some companies have tipped their hand and they've given us the, how would I say, the thought, and they've given us the telegraph, if you will, that we're going to need those. They've already started working on it. They've already got some in the studies, NIH and NIAID. They all have those studies actually ongoing right now. So yes, there will be boosters that are actually will be ready. They're actually testing those for now, but we have to be vigilant, and that's why. So your question was with regards to making sure that is available. So yes, it looks like we're going to need some of those.
And question, I'm sorry, just last part to it.
Nah, go ahead. This is what we're here for, right?
Is it, how often would those be? Are they still testing that out too?
Honestly, to be perfectly honest, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. Right now, we can speculate their thoughts of, is it going to be yearly? Is it going to be every 2 years? We don't know is the correct answer. We have to see how these variants play out and all that stuff.
How long is too long? Say you got your first shot, say you can't get your second shot for a month and a half. Is that too long in between the time?
Get it as soon as you can. So it's not too, it's too long based on how we would like you to take it, but that doesn't mean because, all right, well, I done missed it for about 4 weeks now, so I might as well not take it. No, take it. Actually, the stats right now, they're showing that out of the 100 million doses that have been given in the United States, as of today that I'm speaking to you right now, 3% of people only got the one dose of those who were supposed to get a 2 dose. So that means they're doing a great job and people are actually following up and getting the shot. That's unheard of. That's really serious. So I hope that encourages people.
For me, because I just had my son Noah, he's only 2 months old, you know what I mean? And I am nursing, and I just want to know especially because I've had this conversation with other pregnant women and women who are breastfeeding, like, is the vaccine safe?
We've had enough time to really actually study it in clinical trials, because we've had over like 30,000, 40,000 people that went through clinical trials. Mm-hmm. But not only that, we've already vaccinated almost 100 million people in the country. And all across the world, we've also been vaccinating people. So what has happened? We usually find out signals if there's something really wrong with the vaccine, usually in the first 28 to 30 days of a vaccine when we put them in the study. So we passed that test. We passed that test already. And the way I kind of look at it, and this is for informational purposes only, but the way you got to see it is, what's the risk of me having SARS-CoV, the infection, and turn it into COVID, the disease, where you have a tube down your throat. I work in the emergency department where we're trying to save you and put you in the ICU or people dying versus the risk of an allergic reaction or some type of untoward side effect, as people will call it. Some of those I really call expected effects, because there's certain things you get with getting a shot or a vaccine. So those are kind of the way we kind of look at it in the medical field. It's a risk-benefit ratio.
Do children need this vaccine?
I'll tell you from a pediatric perspective, since I also wear that hat, kids will eventually need to get that vaccine as we start to get rid of or try to squash the pandemic and this virus actually being among us for a while, which we sometimes believe that. But they're doing actually studies ongoing actually in those age groups. But for now, those vaccines are approved for those ages between 16 and above, pretty much. So the kids who are less than that age, like the 12 to 15, they're already doing studies ongoing right now in the clinical trials. But yeah, great question.
Ashley?
Yeah, I have some questions. President Biden recently said that he's hoping that the world can be much more open and available for small gatherings come the 4th of July. But I wanted to ask you all what you think. Like, when do you think we'll kind of return to some sort of normalcy? Obviously, there's certain states that have opened completely back up, like Texas. But I'm asking just for, life going forward, whether it's shooting, I'm getting married in the fall. So I just kind of want to know what you're thinking, what it might look like.
One of the things that we have to be really, really concerned about, and I really love the question that somebody raised, a mention about mental health and the importance of that question. When we talk about, from the very beginning, we're talking about social distancing. And social distancing is actually a proper way to think about those things, but it's not the best way to think about these things, because social distancing leads to social isolation. And with social isolation, that leads to some mental health distress. And mental health distress leads to all kind of other distresses, like empathic distress and empathic fatigue, where we are actually getting tired of seeing all of these people dying and so on and so forth. So therefore, there's a great caution that we need to take in our own prioritization of our being the best version of ourselves in terms of our own health care and our own mental health care. If we don't prioritize ourselves, we have some dangers. So in prioritizing ourselves, we wear the mask, we physically distance, and we continue even after we've gotten the vaccine, even after we've kind of cleared the path a little bit, because we want to make sure that we could, as Dr. Dan just kind of suppress this thing as much as possible, especially for our kids. But what we're seeing in mental health, and I'm part of the public health world, what we're seeing in mental health is an increase in mental health illness from this kind of thing. So if any opportunity in which we can get to come closer while physical distancing is a good opportunity. So we approach these things with extreme caution.
And we're doing this with our friends at HBCU Buzz. And we have so many students from HBCUs that are in the chat right now that have questions. So what I want to do is a speed round for our doctors before we get back to questions from Kelly, Lance, and Ashley. So docs, I'm going to throw these questions out. If we could answer with a brief response, and you can fire at will, okay? Do the vaccines cause infidelity, and how do they affect women who have not yet had children?
So I assume you were saying infertility.
Oh, yeah, infertility. I'm thinking about infidelity.
Sorry, guys. Like, I ain't got nothing to say about that.
Do the vaccines cause infertility, and how do they affect women who have not yet had children?
This is interesting. One of the myths that have been going around. We don't believe it causes infertility at all. There's information and data out there that suggests that there were people who actually got pregnant during the trials. We actually have that information. So if that were the case, then they shouldn't have been pregnant, right? And it shouldn't have come to term. So they've actually looked at the outcome in that.
Is there nano tracking technology in the vaccine?
No. Okay.
No.
Do the mRNA vaccines alter your DNA in the short or long term?
No. And this is important. I'm sorry. I'm going to take the autonomy to actually go into this because this is important. One of the most common questions I get asked, I'm sure my colleagues get asked the same question. It's important to understand mRNA, the RNA virus, the vaccine, how it works. Imagine yourself as a teller in the bank. You get an instruction. mRNA is an instruction. So I go into the bank, I give the teller a written instruction that says basically, I need to get in a deposit and I need you to give me some money back. In the bank, you have a safe, right? There's a big safe that we don't get to see, right? That we don't get to mess with, where they got all the money, the loot, right? The loot is your nucleus. The activity where the mRNA works is at the teller station. That's the best way I can explain it to you. So it doesn't mess with your nucleus, so it doesn't mess with your DNA. I hope that's clear enough.
Last question from my HBCU Buzz is, I heard these vaccines give you COVID-19. Is that true? I've heard that as well. So are they putting COVID in your arm, or is that inaccurate?
Bogus, no.
You can elaborate a little bit more on that one.
I'm gonna let my brothers over here. They go ahead, Dr. Hodges. You got that?
No.
You got another no.
All right. Kelly, Ashley, Lance. Any other questions after hearing that information?
Wait. Brother Terrence?
Yeah.
Oh, quickly. And I think it's like this. I think this is the simplest way, rather than just saying no. Make a list. Everyone should just make a list of everybody that they know who got sick or died, really sick or died from the vaccine. And then make another list of everybody that they know, not they just heard about, that they know who died from the virus. And then try to weigh those two as to what's the best thing to do.
But with a flu shot, they are putting flu in your arm, right?
They're not putting flu in your arm. Now, there's certain killed viruses and inactivated viruses or pieces of the protein. That's a different piece. But to say they're giving you flu, no. They're not giving you flu. Your body is mounting an immune response, which we expect, an expected response. So yeah, your body's going to rev up and you might feel some soreness and ache at the site, and you might have some symptoms of it. But that's your body being revved up. It's not they're giving you the flu. It's always been a common misnomer.
I got to call my mama after this because she done gave me the wrong information.
I feel like, because we are so vulnerable as a community, because we really are, I also feel like, we are so apprehensive to so much. That's why there's so many questions, because we feel like, well, how are we going to be attacked next? You know what I mean? So like, I just think it's important for everyone to know there is no stupid question. You know what I mean? And I think that you ask all the questions that you can so that you have all the knowledge so that we do get this vaccine and we're able to try to live as normal of a life as possible. So if you feel like you have to ask every question in the book, ask it, just so you have the knowledge and you feel like you have the power to be able to explain it to anyone else in a proper way. So I hope that this conversation is really going to spread like wildfire to so many people, because we need it as a community. We need all of this information so that we're educated properly.
So now there's been reports that some people got the vaccination, but then still contracted COVID-19. How do you explain that?
All right, so just because you receive the vaccine doesn't mean you won't get SARS-CoV-2. So let's clarify a couple of things, because there's some misnomers out there. So there's SARS-CoV-2, and then there's COVID-19, the disease. SARS-CoV-2, the virus, can get into anybody's body and cause an infection. When it starts to cause an infection and invade the body and have the disease, you get COVID-19. COVID-19 is that process, and if you get moderate to severe disease, that's the one where you're going to the ICU, you're getting hospitalized, may lead to death, clots, and all the other things. I just want to make sure we're clear about that. So when you get the vaccine, the question is, what's the purpose of the vaccine? The vaccine is really to protect you against what we said, that moderate to severe COVID-19. So being in the ICU, getting the tube down your throat, dying. That's what we're trying to guard against, the comorbidities or other disease processes that follow suit with having COVID-19, the clots, the kidney problems, the heart problems, all that stuff. So we're trying to guide against that. That's what the vaccine is supposed to do. It's supposed to get your body's immune system to see what the suspect looks like and be ready to fight when the suspect shows up, because I got a good description of what the suspect looks like. That's the purpose. So can you get exposed to the suspect again? Sure. But now guess what? I got that heat. I'm ready for you. That's what the whole vaccine is about, really. So yes, you can get it in bottom line.
A lot of people have this whole thing to where they're like, well, and I think you just actually answered my question, but people keep saying, well, you know, if I have the vaccine, I don't need to wear a mask. But obviously you can get SARS, just like you said. And I'm sorry, you said, what is the name of it again?
You got it. SARS-CoV-2. You got it.
SARS-CoV-2. So you still basically have to wear a mask. And it's like so many people, like in everywhere, are just so hesitant about wearing this mask. And I mean, we just should get used to that, huh?
Right, but there's a caveat to that. You're on the right lines, and they're partially right. So it's all about the messaging. There are a couple of things. So let's be clear. So you can get the infection. We got that one point, right? You can also not just get the infection, for those who are unimmunized, who didn't get the vaccine, that have been immunized, go hang around, you can give them SARS-CoV-2 infection. So that's the piece, because if you have a little bit, it might be a small viral load, meaning the amount of virus. Remember, we talked about that, the little bit of virus that you may have. So that's the point why they're saying, if you're around people who have been vaccinated, y'all might be cool because both of y'all are shielded pretty much. But when you're around people who you got vaccinated, but those people don't have vaccine, you need to protect them too. So you need to wear your mask. They need to wear their mask so they don't get stuff from you either. You get what I'm saying? You're protected from having COVID, the disease. They not.
While filming Dear White People, I had to get daily COVID tests. We did PCR and rapid every single day. So I'm wondering if you just have any insight as to how that might change once people are vaccinated. You know, if you're vaccinated, you still need to get tested, you know, on a daily basis if you're in the company of others. Like, kind of how will social interaction work once you're vaccinated?
Great question, Ashley. The bottom line is, it should affect the testing. That's the whole point of getting the vaccine. Otherwise, why take the vaccine? At least that's the questions I get. If I can't be free to roam around the cabin, so to speak, why am I taking the vaccine? Bottom line, in different studies, they've actually shown when they receive the vaccine, they check for what we call the viral load. That means the amount of virus that's actually in the nostrils or in the nasal passages. So they did some swab tests, and they found actually there was a reduction. That was expected. The other part about it is that you actually got to see this when in the studies that came out of Israel, they actually have found some data that's actually shown a significant reduction in the viral load and in transmissibility. So those are all good news. So I anticipate, while there's some guidance by CDC, there will be further guidance. I don't want to get ahead of their message, being somebody who worked in the government before I know how this works. They will put this out, but in the information when we have concrete enough evidence. But we know this is how it's supposed to work. There's some evidence that's already coming out, but once we get all of that evidence, yeah, we'll be on banging the horns and beating the drum, saying, yes, you are good, you are free, you don't need to get these testing and all that stuff. But it also depends on your cohort, who you're exposed to. So your whole cast crew, y'all might be in a bubble. So all y'all kind of been together, so you're cohorted together and everybody's getting tested. Nobody's sneaking out, at least not that I know of. So with all that, so it might be that you know, everybody's doing the same thing. So it should be everybody should be straight to do that. So.
Gotcha. And then I have one more question, and I'm gonna actually direct this to Dr. Kimbrough. I wanted to ask you, just do you have any? Because I like the analogy and the comparison that you did with how we're kind of inaccurately talking about the Tuskegee experiment, right? And because of that, that's kind of made this mass hysteria within our community where Black folks feel like we can never trust a vaccine. And so I just want to know if you just have any tips or tools, or maybe just, you know, a message that you can maybe pass along to us in an effort to hopefully try to encourage our peers who might be a little more leery. Do you just have any tools or something we can say in order to kind of hopefully get them on the wave of trying to trust this vaccine and its efficacy?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. So I think lots of us have to continue to talk about going through the process, be open with it. Like I said, I was in the vaccine trial. I got the placebo, which meant I didn't get anything until recently. So I finally got vaccinated within the last month. As a part of the Pfizer study, but just to get out there, and I've seen a change. I saw people who were, condemning folks who were in the trial now, saying I got my vaccine, and people clapping, oh, that's so good. And I'm just like, where were y'all in September when I was doing the trial? But I think a lot of that has changed. So I think that's good just to continue to get the message out and just remind people vaccines are being developed all the time. But, as one of the doctors mentioned, this is the first time when the entire world at the same time was forced to focus on this. One of the examples I use is that when I was a kid, I had chicken pox, okay? My children, 15 and 12, will never get chicken pox. Why? Because a vaccine was developed. It just sort of happened. Nobody paid attention to it. So a lot of it was it was in our face. It's something that we're unfamiliar with. And so people were afraid. We didn't know people in the vaccine trial. It's not like, you go to church and say, you heard what happened to Miss Jackson. What happened? She died from a vaccine trial. We don't know nobody who died in the vaccine trial. So this is new for all of us. But I think now as it's moved along, people are seeing people, they're trusting it. And so now it's shifted to, well, we got to get more, because there are a lot of, particularly in our communities, there's a lot of Black folks that do want the vaccine. And so now we have to make sure that it's being distributed in our communities. So I think just continue to have the conversations about it, giving them real life examples to say, look, you got kids in school, they've gotten vaccines, they go through this process. But, as we said earlier, I think not only just the term warp speed, but the messenger and the politicization of this made it bad too. And so hopefully now, Biden is not going to have that kind of politicization of this. And I think that's going to help as well. But we all just have to keep talking about it so we become familiar with it, because I believe that there will be another pandemic. Barack Obama gave that speech 5 years ago, said there's going to be something airborne, and boom, there it was. So we know this could happen again. So it's time for us to start thinking about this proactively.
Dr. Kimbrough, how are things going at Dillard University? And have you talked to other HBCU presidents? How we're keeping our students safe, and what's the future plan with all of our HBCUs getting back to business, so that Kelly, Ashley, Lance, and I can be back at homecoming eating fish sandwiches very soon?
I think things are going really well. We had a lot of the presidents in the beginning really work together to make sure we could test our students. The HBCU community is blessed to have HBCU medical schools. So we could talk to the president of Meharry or Morehouse Med School or Howard or Charles Drew. And so they gave a lot of really good information. We partnered with a lot of national organizations to be able to do the testing for our students. So talking to my colleagues, we did a lot of testing. And I think a lot of our students really, COVID was real to them because they knew people who died. And so they were really vigilant to say, we want to be on campus. We want to have a good experience. Those of us that were open, and they wanted to make sure that they were protected. And so now you're seeing, somebody asked about this, providing vaccination sites. We're going to do some mass vaccination sites here at Dillard. And a lot of my colleagues are doing that because once again, people in our community are just saying, well, I don't know if I want to go downtown or this place to get vaccinated. So somewhere in my community. So HBCUs, churches are doing drive-through vaccination. So that's a role that we all can play. So I think we're excited about it because, our students really want and need to be on campus and have that experience. I mean, it makes it an insidious disease for a lot of us. Somebody mentioned this earlier. I mean, I'm in New Orleans. People just don't walk up and hug each other. They walk up and kiss you too. And so when you can't do that, people down here really feel, the connected. So we want to be able to be like we were and together physically and those kinds of things. So, we want people to be able to visit. Terrence spoke at our commencement a couple years ago. So, I'm going to send Kelly the note so she can come on and get ready so she can do one of the next ones. So you smiling, but I'm telling the truth. So I'll get you a note. We'll talk soon.
Okay, you ain't said nothing but a word.
Oh, look, don't play. May 15th. No, we can do this now.
I have a question. For somebody who is taking their vitamins and supplements and just, is typically a healthy person, do you think that the vaccine is necessary?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. So the nutritional vitamins and all that, those are all great. Those are adjuncts. Those are what keeps the body going. That's a good thing. And eating healthy and putting healthy things into your body. But if somebody sneezes on you and they got SARS-CoV-2 infection, I'm going to tell you right now, That vitamin D, vitamin C, turmeric, whatever you got ain't gonna save you.
Wow. Okay.
Just calling it out. I didn't see that before.
You know, I know a lot of people who do want to get the vaccine are just anxious as to when they're going to be able to get it. So do you have any just tools or suggestions as to how people can figure out when it's their turn and figure out how to sign up to get it? And also whether they have healthcare or not.
There's guidance already that no matter your insurance status, you will have access to the vaccine. You do not have to pay for it. That's clear. So that shouldn't be anything that makes anyone anxious. The real question is, how do we get it to the communities that need it? Mm-hmm. So there's typically what we call a hockey stick response. We have difficulty for a little while. It's like a reverse L. Just look at it as that way. So we're trying to get stuff to different communities, the public-private partnership, your churches, your big facilities. We're trying to get those vaccines into the community, the state and locals, how their Department of Health works with the other partners to help get it to the end user. That is us. So there are usually difficulties and kinks in the system, as we've seen. And then all of a sudden, there's just going to be a massive supply when we finally get the system lubed just right, that it spikes up, meaning the supply. We have all the vaccines on hand, and now we're like, please come get the vaccine. We got enough for you. So that's where we're getting to, and we're going to be there soon. But that's what we're looking forward to, and hopefully we can get it to those communities. Oh, by the way, also HHS has a website that actually shows some allocation sites. Every local department also has some allocation sites where they know where they're giving out actually the vaccines, or where you can engage with the system to get the vaccines. That's been the difficulty in terms of the technology and how the ease of use to get people to sign up.
So, you know, we're all hopefully seeing the light at the end of this tunnel. Dr. Dan, as more people get the vaccination and we start to be outside more, what does the new normal look like? What can we expect?
I love that you said it, new normal, because it ain't going back to what it was before, real talk. And I hope it's not, because we got a lot of changes to do, okay? The health system needs to be fixed. Racial issues need to be fixed. Don't let me get started on all this stuff. However, I'm looking forward to the new normal. I think it will be great. It's exciting, but it's a cautionary tale. We've seen this before. We see what's going on in Italy. We saw that last year, and we were like, that's not going to be us. That's not going to be us. Guess what? It was us, and it was us worse, almost 10 times. I don't know the stats, but it was horrible. We all experienced it. We lost a lot of people, a lot of loved ones, a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues. We toiled on the front lines all day long. So yeah, I'm looking for the new normal, but let's make sure we do it cautiously and sensibly. And that's to our governors, to our officials, to our leaders, to our advocates, to you wonderful people in the media talking, and to all advocates of all sorts, influencers, all of that. We all need to be part of the solution. It's our community. We were all part of the problem before. Yours truly also. So we just have to get all our stuff together and make sure we're paying attention to the signs. But go live, have fun, but get yourself vaccinated, definitely.
You know, it's been 1 year since this has affected us all. What do we know now about the virus that we didn't know then?
Well, I want to say something about schools. We learned that schools are not just places where you learn how to read and count and know numbers and so on. We learned the import of school in terms of socialization and what schools brought to the table, and in terms of the whole financial situation. And school is, in fact, to some degree, a babysitting device, so parents can go to work and so on. But we also learned that that schools are actually, in many respects, safer than we thought they were, and therefore, it's time. It might be time right now for children to go back to school safely and be more. There's so many things in place. My wife is a teacher, and they do a great. These teachers are on the front line, essential workers. They do a great job in making sure that the children go safely and come home safely. So we learn more about the schools and what we have for us as teachers.
There's a lot of anxiety, and as we get back to reopening, you got to start thinking about what we call, kind of in the military, we call it redeployment or post-deployment. So now we about to redeploy or get back into this new norm that we haven't experienced before, but we want to go back to the things that we know. There's also some anxiety for those who had, anxiety about being close to people, or germaphobes, or whatever you were, or what you've become, and the fear of the virus and getting it, or catching the Rona, as we would say, right? you did some certain things, some of your behavior changed. So now as you start to try and acclimate back into the system, you might have some reservations saying, we need to speak up about those things and have those conversations. How do I get back into the norm? If I'm at the grocery store and people brushing up on me, am I going to put my cart in there in the space so I can, or tell people, you know, hey, excuse me, I'm just kind of, you know, I still need my space a little bit. And we have to start having those dialogues. And we all, each other, have to be sensitive to those facts that we're trying to get back into the things again. So we might be scared. Even intimacy, you know, somebody asking you out on a date, and how do you respond? Did they get tested? Did they get the vaccine? You know, these decisions that we're going to all go through. So this is a lot of stuff that people haven't experienced before, that a lot of people have been thinking about that when this happens. And I think it should be to the forefront also.
If you could give any final thoughts, any final concerns, if there are, any relief that you've heard from this conversation, and any, you know, key facts that you might have said, oh my God, I didn't know that, before we let our doctors go.
I think if anything, I feel much more comfortable. I wanted to ask all the questions that were really concerning me and got even more information. So I want to thank them so much for their knowledge and their time and being able to be so honest. I feel like, you know, when even Dr. Dan and Dr. Hodge just gave us a simple no, it's just, you know what I mean? Like facts are facts. And I really appreciate the honesty behind it all, because I feel like sometimes that's something that I often am apprehensive to. You know, when you are on platforms like this, somebody's just answering because it sounds good, but it's from a real place, and I can feel that. I can hear it in the way you're answering the questions, and it's truly appreciated. Thank you.
You know, I feel like it's been a year of holding my breath. You know, I feel like all of us in some way have been holding our breath and having some sort of anxiety, whether at the surface or latent, but we've all been dealing with it. And with the access now being available for people for the vaccine, in addition to this call, I feel like I can breathe. I honestly do. It feels like a breath of fresh air. So I'm so grateful to have been a part of this. And I'm really grateful to you doctors for being, like Kelly said, just so authentic and so honest with us, and truly coming from a place of love and wanting to get everybody, but especially our people, educated and vaccinated. So I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like I learned a lot on this call, and I just thank you guys for the opportunity to allow us to ask the questions.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I was not going to take the vaccination. I was scared. I don't like needles as is. There's been so many rumors and just, you know, I was like, I'm going to wait till everybody else do it first. Let's see what happens, you know, let some time go by. And I just think, you know, hearing these doctors that are all reputable, that are all in our community, that are all us, it really resonates. It really means something. And I really appreciate this time for us to, you know, ask these questions, do the deep dive, dig deep. And I 100% feel like getting the vaccination is something that I want to do now. I want to make sure that I'm safe for my family and my loved ones, and I want to be able to visit all you guys real soon. So again, I want to give a thank you to all of our doctors. If any of our doctors or professionals want to say goodbye.
Yeah, I think there's one thing. I want to thank you all for being here and asking the tough questions. But these are questions that's like everybody. I've been on different platforms, multiple. And literally, these are the questions, even in closed doors and other avenues, they ask all the detailed questions, the tough questions. And I think messaging is got to be clear for people to understand. But one thing I want to leave everybody with, it's important when you're making the decision. I'm not judgmental about it. You decide to take the vaccine or you don't. But at the end of the day, you got to know the facts, the right information, get it from a reputable source. And what I always tell people is know your why. Why are you taking the vaccine? Why are you not taking the vaccine? Once you can know your why, then we as healthcare providers, advisors can start to address some of those concerns, but also you can feel convicted in your decision-making. My why is for my parents, my mom and dad, they're elderly, and for my children. So that's my why. And for, of course, the emergency department, so I'm not seeing a whole bunch of patients that I'm not able to take care of people who have heart attacks and other important emergencies versus just having COVID. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for allowing me to be on this platform to have this discussion. Thank you to my colleagues also.
I want to offer something similar. I want to thank each and every one of you. I always greet people with the word, how you doing, family, because that's who we are. We are family, and we need to get back to that kind of conversation. I'm from the Virgin Islands, and even the thugs say good morning. So I love that kind of closeness and camaraderie. I want to say this. 100 years ago, Du Bois said that the talented 10th should lead the way. We need to utilize our talented 10th. In other words, everybody who has a voice of influence, or pastors or teachers, because there's a lack of trust, because there was no basis for trustworthiness. Therefore, we know who we trust. We typically trust our pastors or imams or who are priests. Whoever we trust, let those be the kinds of persons who will help take us to the doctors, as Tom Joyner used to say. We need to get back to the point where we take our loved ones to the doctors, because if we don't, the future is dire. This is going to happen again, but we need to be prepared for the next one.
And I'll just add, thanks to all of you for participating. You know, as someone who works with over 1,200 young people every day, I know that there is a power in your voices. And, you know, it's cool to sometimes listen to what the president says, but to what you guys are saying, that amplifies that. And we know a lot of young people still have a lot of hesitancy. So I really appreciate, Terrence, you being honest about how you feel about that, because a lot of young people feel that way, that, you know, I don't know if I want to do this, or is it safe? So for you guys to engage in this conversation, I think has been fantastic. And I mean, I like listening to the doctors as well. I'm PhD higher education. I stayed in the Holiday Inn Express, so I can answer some questions, but I'm glad to be with them to learn some more too, as I continue to try to educate our people as well. So I just want to thank you guys for spending some time to do this as well.
Thank you guys. Now remember, the information shared for this was for educational purposes only, and not a substitute for professional medical advice. The views expressed are those of the featured medical professionals and reflect the most recent information that was available to them at the time of this filming. Always consult a healthcare provider for all personal health decisions. Again, thank you so much to our doctors for sharing this information and this knowledge. And on behalf of my good friends, Kelly, Ashley, and Lance Gross, my name is Terrence J. Thank you to HBCU Buzz, and thank you to Moderna for providing this opportunity for us to talk and get some information today. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks again.